Where do we start? 50,000, 120, 13, 50. I figured at a technological conference, you might like your data. 50,000 is, according to reports, a number of programmers missing just on a Polish market. That's how much people we'd need to be very happy. 13 is a percentage of women that graduate from IT-related subjects from universities in Poland. 120, that's strong women that made it to the report and in IT business in Poland. And 50, 52, is basically the percentage of women in the society. So, why? How did it happen? What does it mean? And what can we do about it? And to discuss that, I'd like to invite our amazing panelists on stage. I'd like to welcome Mileha Sonei. Yeah, there you go. Coming to us from Netherlands, but also all the way from India. She believes that having empathy and being able to put yourself in another person's shoes makes for great human-centered design. And I think it's actually, it will be quite useful on the panel as well. Magda Firlit is a professional Scrum trainer with several licenses to teach people about a lot of things. And she works with numbers, like with a lot of companies and a lot of people. Magda Walczak is an agile and lean enthusiast with a highly contagious passion for people and technology. She is also an ambassador of Women in Tech in Poland. Paul Klipp is the reason we're all here. One of the reasons, anyway. He's one of the organizers of the conference, and for some reason, he chose that the piece of information we should have about him is that he got his management experience in prison, where he learned management as head chef in a prison kitchen. And supposedly that helped a lot with working with programmers. Paweł Brudziński, hello, he's a seasoned leader and manager, specializing in bringing about change in organization. He's also leading a software house that employs over 50% of women, I'm told. And, last but not least, Elaine Sullivan, who started her career with IT industry when she was only 9 years old by catching a bug. So that's going to be terribly interesting. And Anita Kianka, you've already met. So as a way of introduction, I'm very happy to see you, but I'd like you to tell us all, why are you actually here? Like, you could be just having coffee somewhere in the lobby. Why do you think this is important to you personally and in general?
So hello again, my name is Magdalena Firlit. I'm a professional Scrum trainer from Scrum.org and I'm a consultant, and I also became and mentioned in a report, Strong Women in IT. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Anita. Yes, and I think that in women, is power, and we are really powerful. We can do many things due to our empathy, due to our intuition, due to things that we can perceive maybe in a different way than men. And that's why we can be also very valuable asset. Right now it's changing, so I would like to also emphasize this, that the time and right now the opportunities for ladies are even more available. So that's why I'm here, and to encourage all people, all women here, to be more active, more present. Don't afraid, don't ask. Just be yourself. Thank you. Magda?
You can nominate another one.
Actually, I was expecting this. So I was really glad, and with really huge pleasure, I answered the invitation to actually join you here. And why I wanted to be here, because I haven't really studied IT before. I mean, kind of by chance, I ended in IT, and I truly love it. My first degree is psychology. After, when with some time, I become more and more passionate about technology. I simply went to more IT studies. But what I see from my professional life, and also in the spare time when I'm trying to co-create through some events, meetups, the space for inspiration that I can receive, I can give it. I see that there's more and more women who are actually looking for the inspiration, how to, and information, how to get into IT. So my presence here is to say that it's really possible. It's really, we can do this, and doesn't matter where you really start. You just need to make the first steps. So yeah, I guess I wanna just hand the microphone, and I hope later I can say about those stories that I see that thanks to some interaction and conversation, I have some examples that girls really change their life stepping into IT. So thanks.
Should I? Okay, my main job, I mean, my mission, honestly, for this year especially, is to promote women as role models. And that's why we started Strong Women in IT, and that's probably I'm here.
I'm gonna try this. Yes, it works. I'm Meleha, and I work as a user experience designer in ASML from the Netherlands. But I'm originally from India, so my main motive to be here, and I do this in my life as well, is always compare developing world versus developed worlds. So I'll try to bring that perspective and maybe how it differs and how it's common.
So my name is Elaine Sullivan. I started, as you said, the IT at 9 and caught the bug for it and carried on. That was many, many years ago. So the experiences that I've had have been fairly widespread. To me, what's happening at the moment is that the initial industry that I went into had very diverse people in it, because it was anybody that had some ability or natural aptitude. What's now happening is, some of the challenges that Anita was talking about, and to come to conferences like this and see the diverse people that are here, that inspires me with some confidence that the industry is going to go in the right direction, and I just really love the idea of being part of it. So thank you.
The reason that I'm happy to be here is that, well, for one thing, I'm an employer, and I recognize how difficult it is to find talent. There's a huge gap between the demand for talent in our field, and it's growing, and the capacity. And it seems to me when I look around engineering, universities, IT departments, the missing people are pretty obvious. So as an employer, I think it's a terrible shame that we're not taking advantage of all of the brain power we have available to us. But the other reason is that over my 30-year career in IT now, I have worked for and with many very impressive strong women and many very impressive weak men. And like Elaine was saying, I don't believe you should have to be strong to have a job. You shouldn't have to weather the slings and arrows of fortune every damn day at work. And so I think a change is necessary in order to make our workplaces accessible to all of the people who could contribute.
Thank you.
So I actually have two answers why I'm here. One is that Paul asked me to be a token male on this panel, and then he ruined it because he joined the panel as well. Being a token male would make that panel, like if there was only one male, it would make this group most collectively intelligent according to the research, because the groups that are dominated by women and with only a token male tends to be the most collectively intelligent. That's what research says. But the other reason why I'm here is I'm advocating supporting women in our industry for quite a few years already. I've had lots and lots of arguments why I'm wrong advocating this. Haven't yet been convinced by the other party, by the way. So I have a pretty good argument to support why we should be more inviting for women in IT and in tech in general.
Thank you. So back to the data and reality. You represent very different fields of expertise within the IT sector. So I'm hoping here for different viewpoints. So if you were to come up with data points, statistics, facts, or research, or your observation that you say that's most telling about what's now happening in terms of diversity in the IT sector where you work or in general, I'd love to hear that. Yeah, Elaine, on you go.
I think one of the most fascinating facts that I've heard in recent years is that on the Fortune 500 list of IT companies, there are more people with the name Dave or Steve as a CEO rather than the women or ethnic minorities. And that is sad that you know, just because you're a male, you're in that position. And the stats that Anita was saying with the pictures that you had of 15 people, and you know, they're all men. And we're hitting a ceiling for some reason. But more Daves than women?
I actually think you are wrong. The research said that there are more Jameses than women.
I stand corrected. I'll also correct you on the IQ thing. It's the women uplifting the men and the IQ in the teams.
Coming from India, you think the developed world is much ahead. It's just a view we have. So I was quite shocked to hear that 1 in 4 people that graduate from a technical university in the Netherlands is a woman. That's a really low percentage. If they don't graduate, how do you hire and how do you move up? So I think that's a major root cause to change. Whereas in India, I feel like as women, we're fighting more. So I don't know how to explain this, but we're activists almost, especially as user experience designers or researchers. If you have to do that, you're almost fighting every day to prove yourself, because if you were intelligent, you would be a doctor. So if you're fighting, there are more women fighting, and it's kind of equal in that industry to some extent, especially with software engineering being very popular. So I see that as a bit of a conflict. Yeah.
Maybe I won't jump now to the research that it was already mentioned, or the great report, but I may say from my perspective and from my experience that in the teams that I have been working, they're mostly men, and I see in those who are where the girls joined that the dynamic has completely changed. So even approaching the problem, solving the issue was completely different. So I think that regarding statistics, what I see, especially in technology, yeah, we are still in the men's side, but I see that it's changing. I think that we making those small steps, speaking about it, making even this great panel or part of the conference, Women in Tech, and in addition to that, even that which I'm leading, which is Women in Tech in Poland as well, this is actually changing this. So yeah, I'm hoping for more. And I'm handing to Magda.
Thank you. I, of course, agree with all previous speakers. And I think we are fighters. We are fighters as well. The research that struck me the most, it was that women are better educated than men. At the same time, they can take lower positions, being even better educated, etc. So I was struck. But this is, again, Magda, it is a next step, right? Being better educated, being a fighter. So I believe it's changing and it will be better and better, I hope.
Yeah, what only I want to add is, from my perspective, it's not about that much fighting, so collaborating and kind of fulfilling, like in the team, I'm like with this, like men and women has different approach in case of like how to, for instance, how to solve problems. I mean that it's just science, but so I wouldn't go for that much comparison, like if you are better or who is better, but just to more cooperate. But yeah, so just to add it.
Yeah. I just mentioned the report that said that women are generally better educated. That's ambitious, I would say. Nothing to be like in comparison or fighting. I hope I was understandable.
You know, in my opinion, we have a really great time at the moment because there is lots of organizations, lots of projects that promote women, and the only things that limits us is we ourselves, you know, and our decisions and courage to just start. And I'm really open, maybe to positive, but I truly believe that in a few years it will change really fast, especially when we started to appreciate, to be you know, self-confident in a way that it won't limit us in our mind.
Yes, I do. Because hope is not a strategy. So I see lots of things happening that would mostly go to the media, if you will, like initiatives such as Women in Tech. And what I see, and it's just an anecdotal evidence, is that lots of that effort is is preaching the choir, is addressing people who are already convinced. Probably if we do the demographics in this room, this is pure speculation. There is a better representation of women in this room than at the conference, and people who should hear the message are outside. So while I really do appreciate lots of things that are happening, I don't think that all the efforts that we are making to see the change happening are well addressed. Just to add some controversy to this otherwise pretty much agreeable panel.
I was hoping for that. Also, I was I'm going to ask about it in the next question, but Paul, would you like to add something on this one?
Maybe just one thing, and this is, I think this is something I've observed which is inspirational, which is that we're talking about statistics, and we have seen the statistic that only about 13% of the technical graduates in Krakow are women. And yet, when I go into companies and work with companies, this is an issue that comes up a lot because it's one of the things I talk about a lot. I tend to see companies that look around their own IT departments and they see 10 to 15% women, and they say, well, this represents the actual labor market, so we're doing great. And then I go into other companies, and it's dramatically different. It's 50%, 60% women. And what's happening here is that if 13% of the labor force is women and 13% of your company is women, that means that your company is, congratulations, exactly as discriminatory as the horrible system that has forced 87% of the women out of school. And to be complacent about that, women are as mobile as any other IT worker. You create an environment in which everyone is welcome and comfortable, and you get a reputation. What I don't see is companies that are slightly better than average. So it's always sitting around there at just about 13% women, or much closer to parity. So there's companies who are doing it right and companies who aren't even trying. And trying, as I always tell people, there's no rule that keeps you from stealing great employees from your competitors. You don't owe them their workforce. If you can lure them out by creating a better environment, you absolutely owe it to your stakeholders to do that.
Okay, so let's dig deeper, because I believe we're actually in a very interesting place right now. Because, as you mentioned, in Krakow alone, there are several initiatives supporting women in IT. There are a lot of NGOs. Companies put it on their banners. There's a list of companies, including the one I'm working for, supporting this panel. We're talking about it. We've been talking about it for quite a while now. And yet, the numbers are not really changing. See, Google has become a landmark of a company that does things differently, that if they want something like really badly, they get it. The number of women they employ is 30. So I'm going to spoil the rebel bit, because I agree with you on this one, that I believe some of those initiatives are either too shallow or misguided, or they're marketing. So are we stuck, or should we be celebrating?
I think part of the problem is that the initiatives are based on a tick box. You know, I've got to have diversity. I have to have the 13% of women. I have to have the number of blacks, the number of people that are handicapped. So I get all my ticks, and therefore I look good as a company. The playing lip service is very much that case. We can't fight, as women, we cannot fight against the pressures that are on us, but I really do think that as women, we have to change. It has to be up to us and how we operate within a business. When women go for a job, a man and a woman will look through the job description. The man will go, yep, I can do the first one, can do the second one, can do the third one. Tick, 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 that job's mine. The woman will arrive, she'll look through, sees that she can't do the one at the bottom and says, I'm not going to apply. Even if she gets into the interview situation, the man has already looked at the job, he's gone in and said, I can add this as a value, and I want 5% more than you're offering. And the woman will go in and say, yep, that's great, I'll take the job. So we have to change, our attitudes have to change. It is a male-dominated environment, but we don't have to don the man's clothes. We should play to our natural strengths, and we are cooperative. Agile is probably the most, the best type of environment that a woman could work in, because we can collaborate and we do it well.
Okay, yeah, come on.
Coming back to my report, one of our discussion just before we start our promotion, one of our respondents says, Anita, I can bet that you won't have a lot of CEOs in your report. You will have lots of CEOs, yeah, Chief Operating Officer. And I say, we can bet. And I won, because we have none of them. And I think that we simply, I agree, we have to be more self-confident, trust our values, know our values. And I think that be more risk taker, just simply, try and don't afraid that we will fail. And we are so perfectionists, and this is disadvantage at the moment.
Okay, 2 voices for it's personal and women should change. Who goes next? Yeah.
So I agree. It's heard, right? Yeah. I agree with their views, but I also think that subconsciously we have, I call it subconscious patriarchy. So it was mentioned in the research. It's what is a successful candidate? It's someone who's powerful, who's outspoken, who puts his or her foot down. And we see more of the feminine qualities as motivating within the team, working together, emotional empowerment. We see those as good to have and not really powerful or important. So I think that view also needs to change to get more women on top. And the moment we have more women on top, there's more diversity, more foothold, and eventually it could change. So I think it's the perspective. And I also do it. It's so subconsciously hidden that we need to change that within our subconscious.
Okay, so also blowing up the system from the inside. Who wants to go?
The problem with the advice along the lines we women have to change is that we are talking about changing the culture, changing how we raise our daughters, changing education system. I don't really see that change happening during my lifetime. I'm not that optimist. So while it would be great if we see women wanting more, expecting more, I don't think this is where the change will start. I believe that the change has to start at the places that control that environment, namely organizations.
But if we women have to change, we have to change how we project ourselves to our children. Our children have to grow up with that confidence and that ability. And then they can go out. And it is going to be a generational thing. But it has to start from within ourselves. Until I can provide a good role model to my daughters and to my sons, so that my sons understand the equality that's there, then we're not going to move forward, because all I will do is just perpetuate the biases.
I don't deny it is a good thing to educate our children better. I'm totally in line with that. However, what I'm pointing is that if we wait for that to change, I mean, forget women in tech at ACE conference, like we are wasting our time here. Let's just go home and raise our children better. I do, however, see one gap between the expectations for women to behave differently and what has been said in this room a couple of times, that the common perception is that the strengths of women are along the lines of empathy, intuition, collaboration. And if you ask employers, they would say that these are important traits for them. And then when they're hiring software developers, they would be like, oh, this technical skill tick, this technical skill tick, that technical skill tick. That is the best technically skilled candidate. This is who we are hiring. And oh, well, this is, statistically speaking, probably a man. And those traits that are said to be valued are only valued, they are just paying lip service to those traits. So my answer, why Lunar Logic ended up having more women on board than men, we redefined what constitutes the best candidate. So we started taking into account those other traits, and suddenly we didn't, well, we did have an experiment with the parity. Didn't work, by the way. I don't say it's universally bad idea. In our case, it didn't work. But because we redefined what constitutes the best candidate, we suddenly started hiring more women. And over a couple of years, we reached pretty much the parity, the social parity, like 50-50. Well, slightly more women than men, which is probably true for the society as well.
That's true. Okay, thank you. I knew Anita was wanting to speak.
Yeah, I think that as a society, we like to mimic. If we have someone who can be our role model, we would like to be like someone, like this person. That's why I think we should focus on promoting women to encourage younger to be more ambitious, be more courageous, to don't afraid to go, up with management, all the development of our skills. So I think that if we will promote women that are really doing great job in IT, they will be more eager to be like them, to be in their shoes, something like that. So I believe that this starts, I perfectly agree that we have to change the culture, the society, but first simply start with small steps. Let's promote those who achieve something and encourage others to try by themselves.
Could I hop in
Yeah.
here with the dissenting view to all of these? This isn't going to be popular, but if we are putting people who succeed in a patriarchal system on a pedestal for learning how to play by the patriarchy's rules, aren't we just continuing to reinforce and perpetuate the patriarchy, just getting more women involved in supporting and reinforcing the patriarchy? Until it's not okay for a candidate to show up who's not qualified and get in because they're pushy, we shouldn't be looking at this and saying, the problem is that a woman won't apply for a job that she's not qualified for. No, the problem is the qualifications that we're listing are wrong, and we consistently are willing to accept men who lie about their abilities. Why not address it at the source? HR departments should be writing up descriptions like Lunar Logic is doing, job descriptions that are based on what they really want, which is people who espouse these values, who have these characteristics, these personality traits, who can help contribute and bring something new to our team while at the same time working within our values, and then actually advertise that position. We're looking for people who have these character traits. We have people who have these values in order to do this sort of work and then be open to everyone who shows up at the door. So employers could just switch the game like this, whereas the approach of trying to train women to all be strong and act like men so they can succeed in the patriarchy won't actually make a better world for all of those of us who don't thrive in that sort of a world.
I'm going to cut in because, well, you almost consistently refused to answer the question if we should celebrate or if we're stuck. But it's fine because you just gravitated to my next question. That's going to be also the beginning of a fishbowl. So as soon as you answer, and you feel that is pretty much all you wanted to add for now, you are welcome to join the audience, and the audience is welcome to join me on stage. If just to make it work, I'd like people who would like to join gather in that part just next to Justina. I'll just sort of directing you to the right spot, and we'll make it as comfortable and unintrusive as possible. So guys, we don't have much time, but we want to change things. So solutions. What have you seen that actually worked, and how did you measure it? What have you yourself done what have you seen other people or companies and systems do? Because I'd like to think more broadly, not just on a personal level, but also on level of companies that all of you could use at your companies, at a level of a society that we could just all walk out of here and start implementing.
Within O2 in the UK, they had a very strong system and process in order to ensure that they had the right female characters come in. They refused to deal with any agency that would not ensure that they provide a diverse group of CVs. They also then had a panel to review the CVs for the traits and the skills that they were looking at, but the CVs did not have a name on it, so that the unconscious bias towards the male and away from the female wasn't actually part and parcel of that. When they interviewed, they had a panel interview, again, from the point of view to get that balance of views. And that's something that's been done outside of the IT industry as well. The Philharmonic Orchestra had predominantly males in it, and females would come in. They were very talented, but they wouldn't actually be taken on board. To cut a long story short, they now interview behind a cloth, so when they play, they cannot be seen to see if they're male or female, but they also ask the people to take their shoes off because the bias was such that they could hear how the person was walking, and that was still counterbalancing and not protecting the women. So there are things that can be done.
Okay, thank you. Magda, yesterday we actually talked about something you're doing, and I know you wanted to speak about it.
Yeah, that's right. So maybe for what I already said, what I can add, it's creating communities, mentoring program, and actually meeting kind of one-to-one. It's actually helps. I mean, what I see, and from my experience, for instance, on Agile Warsaw, there has been cases that after the meetup, someone came and approached me and asked, like, "Hey, I know that you are working as a Scrum Master or as an Agile coach. How you actually get there, and what does it mean? Like, what particularly you do?" And then I have that coffee with the person, some meetings after, and it seems that the person, she, after I guess 12 years of being in that school as an English teacher, she became a Scrum Master. And it's not only one example, because just a few weeks ago, I met a girl. She has been working in a non-GS organization, and she said, yeah, I want to become a Scrum Master. Can you help me with this? So it's actually now ongoing process, because she's learning. She's about to pass the certification, and she's looking for a job. So so there are those examples that I can say. but there are much many when I will see like not only what I'm doing, but on the mentoring programs. So the results are really great. Because this actually helps. So the connection that you can actually meet someone, speak, and get the support. So that's from my side.
Thank you. Hello.
My name's Gwen. I think it's really important that there's women on the interviewing panels. So when you go into a company and you're interested in the company, you want to see that there's someone like you there already. And it's really helped me choose a company in the past, and having visible women in leadership positions, but you need to get them in there first. But that also really helps when you can say like, oh, is there anyone there that I can be like one day?
So I would actually amplify the message. It's not only to have a woman on the interview. So what we are doing, the part of the recruitment process is what we call happy hours. So we invite a candidate for like 6 hours to spend with us at the office. So candidates actually see not only a woman during an interview, but they see lots and lots of people at the office, and it just so happens that half of them are women. So the message is stronger. This is one thing. The other thing is we get involved in lots of initiatives that are perceived as supportive to women. Year after year, we sponsor Rails Girls, local Rails Girls events. Actually, a better part of organization committee is from Lunar, and it's kind of a marketing activity on the top of basically paying back to the community, because we are perceived as that company that is friendly to women. And quite a few times I've heard that as an argument why someone has applied to Lunar is like, because you are that company that is supportive. So it's not only the interview, but kind of a broader identity of the company, how the company is seen at the market.
I also would like to add something to you were mentioned. The thing that companies, because you were asking about companies and their efforts, I observe, and I also was involved in some processes in companies, that we hired women or like acquired them to the mentorship process. They were like graduated from humanistic degrees, not like IT degrees. We just encouraged them, taught them, trained them to become, for example, Scrum Masters or people in business analyst or product ownership domains. And how we measure it, they were actually great, and the people like very satisfied with cooperating with them. So I would say like was like employee satisfaction measured at the same time their productivity, if we can say it. So no issues recorded. So I would say the more initiatives program like that, so we can just have more people, more women on board due to such initiatives.
Thank you.
I'd just like to add that at ASML, which is a big tech company in the Netherlands, we go to the root cause. So we try to train in schools and promote tech in schools so that we already get more girls and boys, but more equal and interested in the tech world, so that we see more people graduating. Of course, we have women in tech, and we have these kind of trainings and workshops and discussions how we can improve, because we are just 16% of the entire workforce. And on a personal note, I try to share my opinion on such panels, but I also believe it's awareness. So with a few of my girlfriends, in a few weeks, we watch some feminist movies. So I'm always on a hunt for that. So that's a personal motivation to keep going. So yeah.
I just wanted to add something I'd like to be said on this panel as well. It's also the simple things, just like opposing to sexism at work just every day. It's like, we just need to do it. We still need doing it. I wanted to say it because I've seen a couple of companies in Krakow do that. Like, they've literally done something incredibly sexist in their marketing, and 2 pictures later in their Facebook album, there's an information about how they support women in tech, and hey, there's an event for girls, like Rails Girls or some other well-known initiative. And I'm like, really, guys? Like, have you read what you just written? So, and we work there, we work at those companies. So we can tell people that are organizing it that it's just not okay. And it doesn't make sense, and it's counterproductive. All right, so over to you. Hello?
So it was interesting for me to see some of the statistics for Poland specifically in terms of the graduating class of females in technology. I'm not as familiar as what those statistics are in the US, and I'm a little ashamed to say that. I should be more aware. Just to piggyback off of your point, I think we, for whatever reason, struggle with feedback, good and bad. We're not incorporating that in our daily lives, and I think we need to make a point of that, because the more presence we have, the more ability we have to share when something should be different. And just being that voice, inspiring others to raise their hand when something doesn't look right, we need to challenge our culture. I think that's the opportunity, is to both learn, but also give others the ability to learn, to see it through a new perspective.
Would you like to go with the previous question, because I have another one?
Yeah, I just want to add that I think that also media are responsible for that situation, because like 4 or 5 years ago, I saw a research where 80% of experts in media, I'm not talking only about IT, but also about economic programs, you know, these important programs, not about family and cosmetics. And there are 80% of men and only 20% of women in these programs. So I think also journalists have to play their role in this situation.
I just wanted to address some previous discussion that was here, because I'm under the impression that when we were talking about this issue, we think that hiring women is our main goal, and that if we will have more women in companies, we have already achieved it. I don't think that's the case, because women can also sell themselves on the interviews, and this is not our biggest problem. I think what needs to be changed in terms of women thinking about their role and their situation is also connected not only with inspiration and with knowing that we deserve this and we can do this, but also knowing how to maintain it after, for example, we're being hired. Because a lot of times I've seen that women come to for example, to the employer, and they do great on the interview, then they get hired, but then they start working, and because they were raised in this patriarchy, in the difficult situations, which are difficult both for men and women, they tend to act like this patriarchy is their main I don't know how to express it even. Like, they sometimes stand behind the men. I mean, I know it sounds awful, but like,
Yeah, it just sounds real. Like,
yeah,
we live in a society and we do things that we're taught to do as well, and that's why it's a patriarchy. Like, it's not that men are doing something bad to us. It's a system. So in that sense,
so all the
I believe in it.
initiatives that are inspiring, they're not enough, because we need to learn how to act when we are not actually fully aware of what's happening, because the situation, for example, is difficult, and then our primal instincts start to kick off, and then a lot of women stand out of the stage and leave room for men.
Okay, there's another voice. Thank you so much. Do you want to?
I would add something to what you've just said in between the lines, mentioning that hiring women is a goal for some companies and it's a wrong goal. I totally agree with that. In fact, what we were doing at Lunar Logic was not to achieve a goal of hiring enough women. We were hiring the best candidates. It just happened that they were women. And I kind of opposed that approach to what famously Google was trying to do for quite some time with their initiative, that they were actually they weren't hiring developers unless those developers were women. But despite the fact that they did research, so-called Project Aristotle, that showed that social perceptiveness and how teams communicate are the crucial factors for high productivity, they were still hiring for technical traits. So they've had this research that was saying one thing, and instead of focusing on the outcomes of this research, they said, oh, we want to hire more women. But then they were willing to hire more women who were exceptionally technically skilled, which didn't make any sense, beside the fact that it is the culture of Google. So for them, it was basically the goal to raise the number, to raise the percentage, which was all wrong, if you ask me.
Okay, just one, and then I'm going to ask you the last question. Okay.
Just off of that, I was at a company, and that was one of the goals, was to increase the percentage of women, which I think probably we should be focusing on hiring good people, and it was more of a symptom they were trying to address. But the irony was the hiring managers were some of those that were using an antiquated management approach. They were the command and control that were celebrating some of the behaviors that we didn't necessarily want to increase in our organization.
At the very end, I wanted to go philosophical, because I personally believe tech is quite powerful. It's one of the reasons I enjoy working in this world so much, because I actually believe either now or very soon we'll reach a point where no one on this planet will be outside of the influence of what tech companies are creating. So it's quite important for me to be part of what's being created. But would you say that because of how powerful and rich and how many people those companies employ, so are tech companies responsible somehow for actually trying harder? Are we responsible for trying harder because we work for them? Or would you say it's not the case entirely?
I think it's probably a joint effort, and I think it's up to us to help educate, to inform the benefits of that, to lead by example. So if we're in a position where we can help that cause, probably show the way.
So companies are kind of made up entities anyway, and they're groups of people that are shaping it. So the company
I'm
with
thinking about us and like our role in that sense.
yeah. So of course we're the ones that are shaping the world. So we need to change it.
But I also think that giving all the responsibility for changing it to the end users of those tech companies' products, it's not okay. Because, for example, right now, people are trying to go detox on technology, etc. And it puts all the responsibility on the user. He needs to switch off his phone or turn off the notifications, while it shouldn't be the case. He shouldn't be attacked with it in the first place.
All right.
And as I said before, I think it's also, I think you said that, it's a joint, power, yeah? So we, as IT employees, also journalists, also parents, whole society need to change. And yeah.
I'm very glad you joined us. I hoped we managed to get some quite diverse voices heard. I think we talked about important pieces of data and we gathered some solutions. But that's obviously just talk, and talk is cheap. So we're still somewhere around we were at the beginning, but now we're wiser. So now, thank you so much, and let's do that. Thank you so much, and thank you, my panelists, all of you. Thank you so much.